Hi guys, it's watercolor day. I'm pretty excited about this. We're going to do our background for your children's project. So let me just show you a couple of examples from past semesters. These are all demos that I did in class, so I'll do one today and talk you through it. But this was just a super simple snowy scene with lots of room in the foreground to put your children in some cloudy sky. Here is some sort of a situation with a tree. I'd like to add a little more detail to that perhaps. Here's another, this one was fun. This was from a reference photo of that a student brought in where we wanted to show this kind of mysterious roadway going out into the forest. Oh, that's just a painting exercise. If you guys want, I'll show you. I'm going to be demoing how to do these different skies, and if you want to do this just for your own fun and to practice, the cube that we drew on the first day, I painted it, and I can talk to you guys about that if you're interested, but it's basically the same wash of green color. One coat, two coats, three coats, leave that white, and by adding the extra coats, it darkens areas up and makes it look like it is adding value. This one I love. This one was also from a reference photo that a student brought in, and I drew a little thumbnail sketch just to practice and simplify the photograph that the student brought in. And then I went ahead and did it in watercolor. And I love how this one came out. It quite honestly looks more difficult than it was. I think the key was getting this purplish brown color and leaving the white for the snowy mountains. I'm going to demo how to do trees like this too, because they're really quick and easy. This one was just another exercise where I was showing how to do a wash of color. That'll be my first big demo today. And then another forest scene. Here's another just sort of a hillside situation. After you watch the demos today, if you wanted to recreate something like this, you'll definitely be able to. This is a winter scene, although I don't know why this fall tree is here. Sometimes my demos become like, I call it like a Franken demo, where it's many different ideas all on one board, because multiple students want me to try different things. And then this was some sort of a slightly abstracted field. I like the colors in this one. I thought that one was pretty. But you can see how they're really, they're loose, guys. The purpose of the photo is not the background. Like this is as much fussiness as I would do, this little castle. It's okay to keep it pretty loose for this, because it's all about the kids, right? You're going to basically color your kids, you're going to cut them out, and you're going to place them on here. And that is, so this is just to provide a setting for them to live in. This was a lake with some snow and another tree. And you'll see on all of these, I taped off the edges. I'm going to get some blue tape and I'm going to tape off my Bristol board today. This one was for an outer space themed project. It's so fun looking at these because I remember the students. Like I remember when so-and-so was doing the outer space themed. And then this one was another, like we tried to make like a nebula. And she was gonna have the children floating in the outfits just out in space. Okay, let me pause this. I'm gonna get myself set up. Okay, so here are your supplies. You are going to need a fresh sheet of Bristol. Bristol is the heavy cardstock that we're using to mount all of our project pages together. Okay, Bristol is a multimedia paper, meaning it can really take whatever you throw at it. We can get it wet with watercolor. And I'll talk more about like watercolor paper as we get into the demo. But for today, Bristol is really going to work great for our purposes. You're going to want reference photos. Okay, we can draw your own. These are little thumbnail sketches. A thumbnail is just a tiny sketch that we do to sort of work out the colors and the placement of things. These are all from student project ideas to figure out how we wanted to, in many cases, simplify a photo to create their background. In every case, you're going to want to think about, well, where are your kids going to be? They're probably going to be standing in the foreground. Okay, so you need a reference photo. You're going to need some brushes. These were in the supply list. I get a lot of use out of this big one. Okay, this was my 3/4 inch, like a filbert flat kind of situation. This round one is really nice, and then a small one for details. A lot of the details today at the end, if you need to, you can put them in with colored pencil. Colored pencil and watercolor are like best buds. They work really well together. We want a glass of water. We want some paper towels. We want some blue tape to tape off our edges. It really, really looks much better when you tape off your edges. If you don't, that's not the end of the world at all if you don't have blue tape. Paint the whole thing. Perhaps you could put a strip of like a frame around it at the end to polish it up. You're going to need something to mix your paints on. I've got a palette here. You don't have to have anything this official. You could absolutely use paper plates or plastic bowls or whatever you happen to have around, around. And then we've got some paints. Now these are the paints that I like, but if you have the ones in tubes or if you have the ones that are in like a, little dry palette, that's totally fine. I really like these ones. This is what I'm going to use today, but we can pretty much work with whatever you guys have. Okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to pause this, tape my edges, and then we'll get started. As you're taping your paper edges, hold on, I'm stuck to the table here. You're going to want to press your tape pretty firmly to the edge to make sure paint doesn't seep up underneath it. Just be careful pressing it really firmly to the actual edge of the paper, because sometimes if your tape is a little bit extra sticky, when later on today when we peel it off, you might tear the paper, so be a little careful about that. But you do want to press it pretty nicely right like that. Get my little missing corner. Okay, and I am going to gently wrap the blue tape around out of my way, but this is what I'm talking about. Be really careful hugging the edge, because we don't want you to accidentally tear up the edge of your board when you take the tape off. But I'm gonna just fold it back so it's not in my way here. Okay. Okay, so I'm ready to get started. Let me make sure that you can see my whole paper. And I'm gonna do, let me think what I think I wanna do. I want to show you guys how to do some clouds. I'm thinking I might do just some basic clouds and hillside. And then we can talk about trees. I'll definitely demo the pine trees because those are really fun, really easy. For this scene, I might do more fall trees. Okay, remember it's a fall winter collection, so we probably are going to be representing that in your background. You can do an indoor scene as well. It's totally up to you. Okay, so let me take a pencil and I'm just going to lightly do kind of something inspired by kind of maybe a combination of this guy and that guy. Yeah, you know what, guys? I like this one a lot. I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to do the clouds slightly differently. So let me think about where I want my horizon line to be. It's a little bit low in this picture, which I think looks really pretty here, but I think I want more ground. I'm going to move mine up. You'll hear people talking about wanting to have things in thirds, so maybe a third sky and 2/3 ground. This one is the opposite, 2/3 sky. That's not a bad rule to follow. So I'm putting my horizon line up a little bit above halfway just to make the drawing a little more interesting. I'll put a big tree over here. I'm not going to honestly put a lot of detail right now. I'll add that in after I get the sky in place, but I'll just put a trunk so that I know a tree is going to go over there. Probably have some other trees over here, maybe one like that. And then maybe I'm going to modify this slightly. I'll put a little hillside here, and then I'm going to put trees going all down it. Okay, I drew that really, really lightly, but it's dark enough for me to see it. I'm going to think about, before I start, and I encourage you to do the same, think about what's lighter and what's darker on your image, because it's really easy to put dark over light, but it's very difficult to do the opposite. To put light over dark in watercolor is really hard. Typically what we end up doing, like if I wanted to put like a little farmhouse here or something, I might actually tape it off. Okay, I might actually tape it off and leave the white of the paper so that I can come back in later and fill in my little farmhouse. Does that make sense? I don't think I'm going to do that today because it's just a little too fussy. But you guys absolutely could if you've got an idea for something that you want to incorporate that is going to be hard to add in at the end. You could tape off, we call it masking. You could mask off your board, and I'm trying to make a little shape of a house here so that we could incorporate a little house at the end. Okay. something else you can do at the end. Let me explain. I'll grab one of my old ones. Okay, so let's say I had this one, and at the end I wanted my two kids here, and I wanted there to be like a flagpole or something over here. You can make that flagpole on a different piece of paper, cut it out, and stick it on. It's gonna look awesome. The children will be done on marker paper and then glued to some scrap Bristol or other thick paper before cutting them out and gluing them on. We wanna back them because the marker paper is not thick and it's kind of see-through, so we don't want to just place it directly on here. This is marker paper. So you guys can see if you do your kid illustration and then place your kids straight on here, we're going to see through. So you're going to have these sort of stiff kids on stiff paper that get placed on top. They look amazing. And then you could do the same thing with like maybe a little car or maybe, you know, some other items. So don't feel like you've got to get every detail on here. You could add additional elements later on. Okay, maybe you've got like a string of party lights that you're going to add on at the end, or maybe you're going to add balloons or something at the end. Okay, why not? I'll leave my little house. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so let me mix up some blue. I'm going to make a blue sky. Maybe I'll do kind of blue into a sunset. See how that goes. So what I'm going to do is just mix up some watery blue. I'll show you guys what that looks like. In my palette, I need to get a decent amount of water, okay? My first advice to everybody doing watercolor, if this is the first time you've done watercolor, it's literally called watercolor, guys. It needs to be watery. Like it's really you're gonna work wet. And what happens is a lot of times I have students come to the class and they're really, like their only experience with paint is with like poster paint, like acrylics or poster paint, where you apply that stuff pretty much straight out of the tube, okay? And we do not do it that way with watercolors. Watercolors, whether they're in a pot like I have, or whether they're in a tube, because sometimes you do buy them in a tube, they are so saturated. These are very, very like strong, and we have to dilute it with water, okay? So I'm just dipping into my paint pot and I'm turning my water blue, and it's really watery. Okay, so that's my first thing you need to know, is that this is really different from poster paint or acrylic paint, that we're gonna work a lot more wet than you might be used to. Now, because it's so watery, gravity is gonna let the water run down the page. So I'm actually going to turn, if you guys could see it, I'm lifting this edge up off the table, because I'm gonna let gravity pull the water down the board. What I'm about to do is a gradient wash, and let me see if I can get my camera a little higher. And this is a really good kind of beginner trick for watercolor. This is how I was able to create this whole big area of blue going down, and it's also the same thing I did when I was getting these areas of green. So I'm gonna take my blue, and I've got my clean water nearby, and I've got my paper towels nearby, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my brush nice and wet, and I'm going to start at the top of the sky, and I'm going to drag a bead of blue watercolor across the top all the way from edge to edge, which, by the way, can I just tell you guys, right now I'm wearing white jeans and I'm wearing a white tank top, and I don't know what I was thinking. I completely did not remember that I was doing this demo today. Okay, now you see that bead of water? Don't tilt the paper so much that it runs down the page, but tilt it enough that the bead of water is going towards the other side of the page, okay? And I'm just gonna drag it down, right? Now I want you guys to notice a couple of things. I want you to notice that as I need more blue, I'm going and getting more blue, okay? I wanna always keep a wet bead at the bottom of my gravity fed page here. The other thing I want you to notice is the handle of the brush is up, okay? The handle of the brush is higher than the bristles. It has to be that way, because if you don't do it that way, you're gonna have water running up into your brush handle, and that's gonna make a big mess. Okay, now guess what? I forgot to get myself some sunset colors. So let me mix in a little orange. Let me make a little pinkish color real quick. I should have done this earlier. I don't know why, I forgot. Okay, make a little pinkish color. Okay, start with water, add paint. Okay, so I've got some colors. Now, if you wanted to fill the whole thing in an even color of blue, you just keep doing what I'm doing. You dip into your blue pot and then you go and you work your way along. If you want it to fade to white, you're going to start dipping into your water pot. And you're going to bring that down, and with each dip you can kind of go back into your water and start bringing that down until we start to fade lighter and lighter and lighter. Don't let it get too wet or you're going to have a drip running all the way down. If you have a drip that looks like it's going to run all the way down, okay, you've got too much water on the page, you can do what's called a thirsty brush. Take your brush, blot it on your paper, and that's going to suck up all that water, okay? So you can do that if you need to. That's called a thirsty brush. Okay, I'm going to now take some watery orangey, and I'm going to see if I can just start to mix those together. And this is how you make an ombre, and you can do this with whatever colors you want. Okay, you just sort of transition your way from one to the next. Transitioning, transitioning, transitioning. Okay, something interesting is happening down here. Do you guys see how there's a spot? Do you see that spot right above my little farmhouse? Am I in the frame? Yeah. I just switched to pinkish purple. I'm going to put some red all the way down at the bottom. Okay, now that spot right there, it's not taking the paint. Do you want to know why? Because I put my finger on it. I accidentally put my finger right on that part of the paper, and the oil from my finger is making the paper resist the paint. So be really careful when you touch these things. It's the same reason we don't like to touch our drawings. I am holding it down here. That's probably going to make a spot a little later. Okay, so my sky, I think I'm kind of done with it. I'm going to go ahead and get a thirsty brush. I'm going to suck up whatever paint I don't need, and I'm going to try to add in some clouds. Okay. Watercolor in general dries lighter than it looks when it's wet. Okay. So don't panic if you do something and it looks a little too dark. It's going to dry lighter. Right now my sky is really pretty pastel. I am totally fine with that, but if you wanted it darker, just make your paint a little bit more dark, more thick with paint. Okay, if your paper is still wet, you can come in with a paper towel, and mine isn't wet enough except down here. You can come in and you can blot away some areas, and that can start to create cloud shapes. Okay, so if I had, what I'll do is, I'm probably going to regret this. I'm going to go back over my sky at the top, because I want to get it wet again so I can show you guys getting a cloud. Okay, I typically wouldn't do this because it's really hard now to transition this into what I already have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wadded up paper towel, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to blot it. It has to be still pretty wet in order for this to work. And I'm just going to blot it up, and that's going to start giving me something that looks like clouds. And when you look at clouds, you guys are going to notice a lot of times they've got some darkness underneath them, especially if they're full of rain. So you can come in and you can take your colors, and you can come in and you can even put a little bit more color at the bottom of your clouds. Maybe even we're going to put a little pink. Maybe I've got some of those sort of horizontally floating clouds just coming around through there. Ooh, I'm kind of liking this, guys. Kind of liking it. You never know quite what you're going to get with watercolor, and I feel like that's a little bit of the challenge with them, but it's also a little bit of the fun with them. You know, like you're basically trying to be one with nature and like hoping for the best. And watercolor takes years to master. I am absolutely not an expert. I've taken a lot of classes on it, but it's the kind of thing where, you know, I don't do it in my spare time, so I'm certainly not an expert by any means. Okay, so one way to get clouds is by dotting out the paint with a paper towel. You can also paint in your clouds the way I was doing with the pinky colors, and I could do that with a little bit of blue over here. Now, I want you to notice also, I'm holding my paintbrush pretty high up. I'm not choking it down by the bristles. The higher you hold it, the more, the less control you have in a way. And with watercolor, I think that helps. When you're trying to paint natural things, we want it to feel a little bit like less, I don't know, more like nature kind of did it itself. So try holding your brush up high, and that'll help. Okay, Okay, so I've got my sky going. Oh my God, I'm already at 20 minutes. I'm gonna start the next video and we'll go ahead and talk about how to fill in the rest of this, and trees are coming and some other details are coming.